What's up, fart faces? Sorry for the selfie cam. All of the audio in my original footage was terrible, so I had to do this. But today we're making Jackie from Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Let's just get to it. Okay, I'm starting with an armature because if I don't do an armature on this, it's going to crumble, and it's a weird floating Jackie from Five Nights at Freddy's, and it needs a wire base. And then I put some Sculpey Ultralight, baked it for 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna block it out with some Super Sculpey. Now I'm just gonna block out the body. Just basic shapes, smooth it all in with my fingers. I like to kind of tickle the clay, smooth it all out the best I can. And then I worked on the shirt, just thin layers, build it up. And then I wanna keep the clean edges, so I didn't smooth that right away. After that, I started doing the arms, which are corrugated, so I used little noodles of clay and wrapped them around the arms and shaped them. I'm using a giant silicone tapered shaper here. I like using it when I'm first starting a sculpture. Next, I took a very thin layer of clay to clean up everything on the arms. I call it a cleaner sheet, and I mostly use it over folds and wrinkles, but you can use it over anything you want to clean up. That's why it's called a cleaner sheet. It just gets rid of any lines and defects in the clay. Here I'm making the ruffles around the sleeves and the sleeves themselves. And now I'm going to take some floral wire, very thin floral wire, and make it the segments in between the fingers. And just take little rolled up noodles of clay for the fingers. And I'm making the hands as part of the base, so it's not just a lifeless statue on a platform. It looks like it's grabbing, the wooden plaque and it's walking towards you. It's got some life and animation. And now I'm going to make some more ruffles, which I feel like this whole sculpture was endless ruffles. I sped it up in the video, obviously, but this took an ungodly amount of time. Now I'm going to make the mechanical skeleton of Jackie. I took some armature wire and wrapped it around a little bottle of paint to make a little spring looking thing. And then I stuck it right up the b-hole of the sculpture. And then I took some stereo wire and cut that in half to kind of add to it to make it look like split wires. It really helped it give it that blown apart animatronic Jackie look. Now I'm going to start on the bow tie, giant bow tie. Try to exaggerate it a little bit. It's not going to be true to, Five Nights at Freddy's Jackie, but a little more my style, Tim Burton-y, realistic type, it's creepy. Then I just rolled out a little disc for his button in the middle of the bow tie. I'm just using my small ball stylus to poke the little holes in the middle, use some clay adhesive to stick it in the middle, and then we can bake it on later. I rolled out 3 little pom-poms for the shirt, and then I got this pack of texture tools or rollers from Amazon. I'll link it in the description below. Just rolled it over the little pom-poms, stuck it on the shirt with some clay adhesive, and that's it for the body. We're gonna bake it 15 minutes. Hopefully we don't burn it, hopefully we don't break it, drop it, because this took way too much time. It was emotionally painful, and I don't want to do this again. I'm totally just kidding. It's art, it's fun, and it's great. I would totally do it again. Definitely not though. Now for some more pain, we're gonna do the head. I don't know why it was so difficult to sculpt this, but it was. First I got this, and then I got this monstrosity. Looks like Barney on a bad day. Third time's around's the charm. I figured I'm just gonna go one more time, and whatever I get is what I get, and luckily it ended up being fine. I don't mind showing my mistakes and the struggles you go through as an artist trying to make something, especially a sculpture. Actually, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Not enough people show, the bad parts of being an artist, and I don't mind showing it because that's real life. And the whole point, the whole reason I wanted to make this channel is to show those things to whoever's watching, because I know that when I watch tutorials and try to figure out how to make something or how to do something, nobody ever really shows you the struggles you go through, the trial and error, the troubleshooting. So that's what I'm here for. That's what I want to do. I want to show everybody those things so you know how to work them out, because that's the only way you're going to get to learn how to build something, make something, sculpt something, draw something. And here we go. We're halfway done with the head, I think. Now I'm going to do the fine detail on the face, little outlines of the eyes. It's kind of cartoonish, the eyelashes, very small fine detail. I'm using my silicone shaper tool to kind of blend everything in. and then I'm gonna roll out very fine. It's supposed to be wire. I was gonna use floral wire, but it was too difficult. Another half of the day of struggle trying to do that. For the eyes, it's essentially a metal piece that holds the eyes together in the Jackie sculpt. And then I'm just gonna continue to detail. One of her eyes is blown out, so I'm just cutting it with my X-Acto knife and making little fine details, lines, like I said, using my spoon tool, my ball styluses to smooth and shape and, you know, just break everything down until I get it how I want it. I also want to point out that on the back of the head on my sculptures, I leave this little long piece. It looks super weird until I cut it off like this, but it's just so I could hold on to the sculpture without messing up the head. Now I'm going to use some cos clay. It's flexible. I used the extra firm. I'm going to use it for the hair. I inserted a wire through a piece. It's the bulk of the hair, and then I actually braided the cos clay. Credit goes to my wife for teaching me how to braid my daughter's hair. I actually braided it. I made 2 little pigtail braids for the hair, stuck it on, blended it on with my blenders, and then I used my dental pick to just make, you know, the individual hairs, just fine detail, just working it until I get it how I want it. And then I cut 2 thin strips for her little hair ties. Some more detail on the ends of her pigtails. And then I made her little hat, a little cone shaped like a Hershey Kiss almost. And then more ruffles. The amount of ruffles I made in this sculpture, I will absolutely have carpal tunnel, like tomorrow. I made another little pom-pom for the top of the head, some clay adhesive to stick it on, and there we go. That's pretty much the head. That's it. I stuck the tongue in the mouth, kind of broke the jaw a little bit to give it that zombified, you know, I didn't make this true to life Jackie. I kind of did it in my own style. And then before I bake it, I used some clay softener to get rid of the fingerprints and marks. Personally, I'm not crazy about this stuff. I'd rather use alcohol. I go back and forth depending on the sculpture. I baked the sculpture for 15 minutes, all the parts, and now we're gonna airbrush prime everything white and then get to painting. I'm gonna use my Army Painter wet palette to paint the sculpture. Full disclosure, I am not sponsored by them. I will gladly accept it though if they offer it to me, Army Painter. I just like the size of it. I like the storage on top. I like the way the paper goes on. Everything is just great about it. The paints are great, especially the new Fanatic line. I also use the airbrush line, the air line, and the speed paints. I have almost the entire collection. I just really don't have anything bad to say about them. I also use Vallejo and other brands, but they got me started, and I have a nuclear ton of them, but please, Army Painter, send me more. It kind of looks like I'm painting the clay color back on, but it's not. It's Mummy Robes by Army Painter. It's just like a fleshy off-white color. And then I'm gonna paint the arms a bright orange color. All the colors I used were pretty simple, basic colors. It's a clown, so I mean, it's nothing crazy. Basic colors, not a lot of shading. It's, you know, 3D animated, cartoony, so it wasn't anything crazy. I will make a note that with Army Painter paints, they are amazing, especially the new Fanatic line. When you're painting polymer clay, it absolutely is going to take multiple coats. That's why the blue there, certain colors especially, the blue, yellows, whites, they're going to take multiple coats to look even. That's why the blue looked a little funky when I first started it. Also, I highly advise that you thin your paints, even painting on clay. I'm not painting a model here, so I kind of just throw the paint on. I'm not worried about brush strokes and everything. I know they're gonna clean up and clear up because it's gonna take multiple coats. There's also a lot of texture in clay. It's porous, so I don't worry a whole lot about brush strokes. You will get them on smoother surfaces, but for the most part, it's not like painting a resin 3D model or something super smooth or something hyper realistic or like a super detailed, hyper realistic painting. So if you're just starting out, be easy on yourself. Don't go crazy. If you don't know how to paint, this is actually a very good place for you to start to learn. I'm just gonna finish up the finer detail, little stripes on the shirt, the suspender straps, just little fine detail that I'm finding around the sculpture that's left over. And then I'm going to use the speed paint I was talking about earlier to do washes and finer details like the lining in the shirt. I add water first, just water to a surface if I'm trying to do recess washes. And then I get my paintbrush and just dab it on, and it just kind of runs the wash through the recess. Now I'm just going to take a different speed paint and just kind of dirty up the arms and the body. Give it that dirty, blown up look. Give it some more life, and then onto the head using that Army Painter airline like I was talking about earlier. Just another quick tip. I have this, it's for physical therapy. It's like a silly putty. A lot of artists, the airbrush and paint, use silly putty from like the dollar store, but this is for like arthritis, for physical therapy, and I use it as a mask, and it works so good because it's sticky. You can stab it into little crevices with your tools, and I say it's sticky, but it comes off in one piece when you want it off. This stuff is great. I suggest you pick it up. It comes in a 4-pack, also on Amazon. I am just full of tips and tricks today. Sorry, I was blabbing way too much to tell you that I changed over from airbrush paint to the speed paint in my airbrush to finish up the shadows and detail, the finer detail on the head. It sprays great through an airbrush. Just be careful, don't use it in a very expensive airbrush because it does tend to clump up. After a while, it dries and kind of leaves a film. And now I'm just going to use a regular brush to go over the microfine detail on the face, eyebrows, eyelashes, and things of the sort. And we're coming close to the end. Finally. Again, here you can see me doing a recess wash. You can see it a lot better, it going right into the recesses, perfectly running through it. And then I'm using this True Blood effects paint by Army Painter. It's like a goopy red opaque paint that dries glossy instead of matte. It's a pretty good blood. It's not, I don't think it's dark enough in my opinion, but I added that to the teeth and the mouth to just give it a little more realism and creepiness. Gonna airbrush the hat, do a few little details. I'm gonna paint on the little diamonds on the hat, and then we're gonna glue everything together and finish this thing up and add the final details. Now that we're done painting, we're gonna make the eyeballs, I guess you can call them that, which are, it's essentially just coiled up wire, like hot wire. I just took really thin little ropes of clay and rolled them up tight. And then I'm gonna paint them with this Liquitex ink. It's thin, it's bright. I like this color, it goes on really bright. It looks glowing. And then I took LED lights, drilled a hole through the eye, and then I attached a watch battery, and look at that. It's got glowing eyes. Holy shit. I'm also gonna add some little bits of metal. I'm just gonna use my armature wire and like little pieces of metal that I found laying around. Also, I got rid of the other tongue. It looked stupid, and I made this giant red pepper tongue. It just looked creepier, and it just fit better. Here we are, all complete. I'm gonna put a gloss coat on the tongue and the teeth to make it gross and goopy looking, more realistic and wet. And then I use some UV resin, let it drip off the tongue while I have my UV light going so I can get those drips hanging and freeze them in place. Very difficult to do, but if you do it right, you can do it. The tongue had a weird angle, so I couldn't really get it dripped off. And then I use this E600 glue as like some drool and, you know, like just nasty slobber hanging off the teeth and stuff. And it's a very good effect. It is extremely messy. It will get all over you. It's hard to get off. Here, I did some extra and took a piece of a candle wick and rubbed it all over the model because I just couldn't put enough time into this thing. I just kept going and going and going, rubbing it all over. I really didn't need to do this, but it's an added effect, and I'm always trying to do new things to try to find new ways to make things look cooler and more realistic, so it's fine, whatever. All right, here she is. One final look. Sorry, it's a little dark, like I said. Selfie cam, terrible. Hope you learned something. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.